Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto becomes the second natural-born vampire. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Running was something Naruto was used to. He had outrun countless people in his time and had rarely been caught. He stole food in order to live, and the fat clerks would only put up a small challenge before their out-of-shape bodies would give out on them. He would outrun even trained Anbu when they were in the area and he was caught stealing something. Even they rarely caught him, though it was usually only because of the white-eyed people that they were able to do it. Currently Naruto was running for his life through a portion of the deep dark forest that surrounded Konohagakure, the village in which Naruto lived. It seemed his 6th birthday the villagers had organized a giant hunt in order to finally get rid of the village pariah on the same day as the Kyuubi attack, and unfortunately his birthday as well. It was like this every year. The villagers would get drunk, start talking about the good old days, then their mood would turn sour when they would remember the Kyuubi's attack, and that anger would then be directed at him, for reasons unknown to Naruto, and then they would try and kill him. This only started happening around Naruto's 4th birthday, as the village had been too stressed out rebuilding and maintaining a false sense of power to show to the rest of the world. The first time the Hokage had fortunately been visiting him and was able to deter the mob, his 5th birthday he was able to hide in the red light district, but unfortunately this year they had blocked that option off before he could get to his hiding spot, the ninja fantasy bar, which had scantily dressed women would on multiple occasions ask the men if they wanted to visit the powder room, and it was rare for the men to say no. They had formed a large mob again this year and had basically invaded his apartment, not that his bastard of a landlord tried to stop them, and attempted to murder Naruto in his own home. Luckily, Naruto had heard them coming and had used the fire escape to leave. One of the ninja in the crowd though had seen him and pointed this out to the others in the crowd, and the chase was on. Naruto didn't really know what god he had offended in a past life, but he really wished said god would just let go of his grudge. Naruto jumped fences, ran through homes, some of which were still eating dinner, those people he stole food from when he had the chance to grab some as he ran by, swam through pools, and basically any other obstacle he could cross over. If he couldn't cross over it, he would find some kind of shortcut nobody would have ever thought of. Unfortunately, as Naruto was coming around a corner, a kunai somehow pierced the side of a wall and kept on going. The kunai was glowing a slight blue color and was able to pierce Naruto in the right side of his chest. Knowing what would happen to him, Naruto kept on running in spite of his injuries, but this caused a blood trail to form that the villagers had taken advantage of. Ahahaha, breathing heavily, must get away, spoke Naruto as ran through the dark forest. The pain in his chest was a burning fire and it was killing him. He had pulled out the kunai and stuck it in his pocket just in case the inevitable happened. His sight was going blurry and the burning was traveling through his veins. Yeep, this was planned. They even poisoned the kunai for God's sake, thought Naruto as he held the kunai in one hand and stumbled through the forest with his ever-weakening legs. The forest never seemed to end and the sound of his pursuers seemed to be getting even closer. Naruto wasn't scared, he had long ago lost that fear and had come to accept it as something natural. He had unconsciously turned his sense of fear into a heightened sense, much like a sixth sense that he had used on more than one occasion to predict when something bad was going to happen. Know what Naruto was feeling was anger. He was angry at himself for being weak, he was angry with the world for making him its personal whipping boy, and he was angry that all of this was happening on such a beautiful night. The night was black as these villagers' souls and the moon was as full as could be, and as red as his blood. Well, if I have to die, at least it will be on such a wonderful night, thought Naruto as he continued to run through the dark forest. The forest was something of a mystery to Naruto. Ever since he learned to understand the English language, he had heard stories on the ferocity of this forest, and yet he, a 6-year-old boy, had been in and out of it more frequently than the ninja of his village and hadn't ever seen anything more dangerous than a large 4-foot snake, and even that completely ignored him, though that upset him more than anything. As Naruto ran, he kept hearing screaming and the sounds of explosions. He stopped and looked back, seeing a plume of smoke rising up from the forest behind him. He grinned, thinking maybe this forest might be a little bit more dangerous than he previously thought. As Naruto kept on running, he heard the sound of something traveling through the air at high speeds and quickly ducked and moved out of the way, Out of the corner of his eye he saw a kunai encased in lightning pass by the area where his head had been and pierce 5 trees before being stopped halfway through a large rock. When Naruto turned and saw who had thrown that kunai at him, he groaned loudly. There standing in the trees was at least 10 ninja, and not the weak kind either. There were 2 with those pale white eyes that always made him feel like they were looking at his soul. 2.5 of the red-eyed people with weird coma marking in their eyes that he felt were always blaming him for something. The rest were jonin with animal masks on like the Hokage's Anbu, except they were only wearing the masks, not the whole black outfit. In the distance Naruto could hear the regular civilians along with the weaker and slower ninja coming his way. This was going to be a long night for Naruto. "Don't tell me you guys are lost and found little old me," spoke Naruto with annoyance in his voice. He knew he was screwed. You didn't have to tell him, but that didn't mean he had to play the role of someone's bitch now, did it? "Looks like we finally caught you, you damn demon spawn," spoke one of the ninja as he pulled out a tanto and started channeling chakra through it. Naruto looked at him with annoyance in his eyes. He wasn't too fond of that little nickname he had been given. "Sorry, you've got the wrong guy. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, not demon spawn, so you're going to have to take your little search party somewhere else," spoke Naruto. Was a voice that spoke without fear or really even caring about the situation at hand. "Don't you dare try and speak your way out of this, demon. It is time you finally got your just desert, and we are finally going to get our justice," spoke one of the ninja as he pulled out a kanata and started channeling fire-based chakra through it, causing the blade to turn red. You could practically see the heat coming off of the blade, and Naruto knew even dodging that blade would leave 3rd-degree burns if it was to close. "I don't remember seeing you a day in my life, so how could I have crossed you? Maybe I stole from you, or could it be you were the guy the first turned pink that one time?" spoke Naruto, though his voice was devoid of emotion. He could feel the poison spreading faster and faster. Whatever poison they used must have been very expensive, because he had a great immune system, strong enough to even fight off most poisons and viruses, but whatever this stuff wasn't slowing down at all. "No, you killed my wife," shouted the Uchiha, his Sharingan eyes spinning wildly in his head. He was extremely angry when Naruto made a fake yawn at his expense. "Sorry doesn't ring any bells. She mustn't have for me to actually kill her and not remember. Maybe she was so tired of you that she killed herself but didn't want to look like a coward and blamed me," spoke Naruto as he examined his nails. Like he had nothing better to do. He didn't like that his hand started to shake slightly. The poison was already starting to kill the tissue in his arm as it had his chest. Naruto knew that in a few moments it would make its way to his heart or brain, and after that it was game over. "You baster!" shouted the Uchiha, but he was restrained by another Uchiha who had an annoyed look in his eyes. "Calm down, can't you see he is just trying to rile you up? We all want a piece of him, so don't get antsy," spoke the Uchiha as he looked down on Naruto with hatred in his eyes. "We're not like that, we're straight," shouted one of the Hyuga, looking truly angry. Naruto knew a great way to get under the Hyuga's skin. That coming from a member of Konoha's most perverted clan. How many times have you activated those eyes of yours and saw another man naked? Did you ever wonder about what it was like to experiment a bit with them? By now the Hyuga were as red as the Uchiha's sword and looked ready to murder, well, even more ready than before. "Silence!" shouted the Hyuga. Naruto just shrugged his shoulder but then fell on his butt and his head fell forward with his hair covering his face and eyes. "What happened?" asked one of the Anbu wannabes. The one-eyed Uchiha Wanabe, or Kakashi Hitaki, just smiled and jumped down from the tree. He walked forward a bit but then turned around to look at his partners in crime. "It looks like that expensive poison I got from Kiri really did the trick. It is the same stuff they used to kill the Yodem Hokage with," spoke Kakashi as he looked down on his sensei's killer. "What? We were supposed to get our revenge and yet you stole it from us," shouted one of the Anbu masked ninja as he jumped down from the trees and landed beside Kakashi and stared him in the eyes with hatred building. "The monster would have just healed from any damage you could inflict, so it was necessary," spoke Kakashi as he looked at the ninja with annoyance. "You're only saying that because it was you who killed him. I doubt you would be preaching this high and mighty crap to use if it had been someone else who had killed him," spoke the Anbu wannabe as he pointed towards Naruto and then towards Kakashi. "What is done is done. There isn't anything you can do about that," spoke Kakashi with annoyance as he started to walk away, on his way to his sensei's grave to mourn him some more. "Fine leave, but I am going to at least burn the body," spoke the Anbu wannabe as he walked over to Naruto. He at least wanted to see the boy's eyes as he burned. When the wannabe Anbu ninja got to Naruto, he bent down and leaned Naruto's head back and went to open his eyes, but was shocked when Naruto opened his eyes on his own. The ninja went to say something, but there was a sickening sound of metal piercing flesh and bones right before everything went dark for the wannabe Anbu ninja. When Kakashi looked back, he felt his anger boiling over. Sitting there was the demon child holding a kunai that was halfway buried in a respectable ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village head. He had flashbacks of when the Kyuubi attacked the village and its claws cut down countless ninja without care or trouble. "Damn, he wasn't as dead as we thought," spoke one of the Hyuga, but like the others he was happy. He was like that other ninja in feeling Kakashi had stolen their chance to kill the boy. Now that he was alive again, they had their chance to extract revenge. "What are you guys waiting for? Attack!" shouted one of the ninja as he ran at Naruto. Naruto's chest was in agonizing pain, and he couldn't feel his right arm, but his instincts were still there. He still had his animal instincts along with his killer instincts as well, so he rolled over and avoided a strike from the first ninja and started running off holding the pouch of ninja supplies he had taken off of that ninja he just killed. "After him!" shouted one of the ninja. "What's that sound?" asked another. When everyone looked down, they saw the body of the ninja that Naruto had just killed smoking from the underneath. One of the Anbu masked ninja walked forward and flipped the body over and instantly regretted it. On the other side of the body had to be at least 10 paper bombs, and they had all been lit. He remembered how they had been talking about wrapping up the demon child and then blasting him to pieces earlier that day. Karma you be. But that was as far as he got before the explosion went off and killed him along with 5 of the other Anbu masked ninja, now lowering their number to 2. The Uchiha plus the wannabe Uchiha as well as the Hyuga had been able to escape the blast and shrapnel. "I am going to make him suffer the slowest, most painful death he could ever imagine," spoke one of the Uchiha as he pulled his katana to his side and channeled even more fire chakra into it. "Agreed," spoke the wannabe Uchiha as he ran off towards Naruto. As Naruto ran through the forest, he smirked at how well his plan had worked. The pain was spreading to his legs, so he knew he didn't have much time, but he would take out as many of those ninja as he could. He was able to make it to a clearing when the other ninja were able to catch up to him. He looked around and smirked. He had been able to kill 8 of his 20 pursuers, a number much higher than what he had assumed he would be able to when he was first pursued. Now he wished the civilians would catch up because he had plenty of explosive kunai on him now, and it would do his soul good to blast a good number of them to bits. "Looks like your numbers have thinned quite a bit," spoke Naruto as he leaned on his good leg. His right leg and lung for that matter were already starting to quite on him, making both standing and breathing much more difficult. "Shut up, monster. We're going to make you regret what you did," spoke the wannabe Uchiha as he eyed Naruto with that one red eye. "Trust me when I say that no matter what you do I will never regret killing you guys," spoke Naruto with a smile as he pulled out a kunai and prepared to defend himself. "Enough of this crap. I want him dead, and that's what I'm going to get," shouted one of the Uchiha as he ran at Naruto with his red-hot sword cocked back. Naruto grinned at the oncoming Uchiha. His arrogance and anger mixed in with his decided form of attack made what he was about to do perfect. Naruto pulled his arm back and then threw the kunai in it at the oncoming Uchiha. The Uchiha easily blocked the kunai, but that was just what Naruto wanted him to do. When the red-hot sword hit the kunai with a paper bomb attached to it, well, let's just say bombs away, there was nothing left of the Uchiha except a puddle of blood, some body parts, a small crater, and a plume of smoke raising into the air. "Ha, that's what you get for messing with Naruto Uzu." But that was as far as Naruto got before a lightning-covered hand pierced his heart from the back. Naruto looked down at the hand for a second, not realizing what had just happened until he looked behind him and saw the one-eyed Uchiha, or the wannabe Uchiha, standing there with a serious look on his face and a slight grin that was visible through his face mask. "Looks like this is the end, demon," spoke Kakashi as he looked down on his sensei's killer. He hadn't been this happy since the last time he saw his sensei, but now he could go on living knowing his sensei could finally rest in peace. "Seems so, but at least I won't be going alone," spoke Naruto as he removed his shirt, revealing all of the rest of the paper bombs that the dead Anbu wannabe had on him, which was a lot. There was so many that the guy had to roll them up like a giant money wad. You wouldn't? That many paper bombs and there wouldn't be anything in this clearing left, shouted Kakashi as he tried to pull his hand free of Naruto's chest, but found Naruto's hand firmly held onto his own. I hope you have made your peace with the Maker Ninja Bakaiher, shouted Naruto as he activated the paper bombs on his body. The explosion was incredible to say the least. Kakashi had been wrong about the power of the blast. It did only destroy the clearing, but that was because of the way Naruto had applied the paper bombs. He didn't want to kill the creature in the forest, they were innocents, but he did want to make sure he killed the ninja in the clearing, so he applied the bombs mainly to his lower body like legs, feet, and waist, causing the explosion to go down and be powerful but spread slowly. Naruto got what he wanted in the end. The ninja were all dead, body parts were laying everywhere and it was literally raining blood, but no animals were hurt in Naruto's vengeance. There was a giant crater in the center of the X clearing, and amazingly Naruto's upper body from his hips up was still intact, though badly burned, bleeding, and lacerated along with body parts of his attackers. It was then that the civilians and lesser ninja arrived to see the destruction that had occurred. They walked to the edge of the crater and looked down, and what they saw made their night. Seeing the body of Naruto in pieces caused them to rejoice, and they even forgot about the dead lying around Naruto. Some of the even braver ones jumped down into the crater and ran up to Naruto's body pieces and started kicking them and stuff. None of them realized that though almost dead, Naruto wasn't completely dead. He still had a spark of life in his mind, but that wasn't enough to keep the Nine Tails at bay. All of the civilians and the weaker ninjas started screaming when massive amounts of red chakra started shooting out of Naruto's stomach, where an intricate seal had appeared and shot into the sky. About halfway it took the form of a ghost-like form of the Nine Tails, who was grinning victoriously, knowing in only a few short years it will have reformed, and Konoha was its first stop on its road to revenge. Even this wasn't enough to extinguish that last spark of life in Naruto's head, that part that clung to this world as it stared up at the beautiful big full blood-soaked moon that looked to be much closer than it usually did, causing it to look bigger as well. I don't want to die, not yet. I haven't gotten the revenge that I want. Look at them. They are so happy I'm dead, and yet I can't even wipe that smirk up off of their faces. If only I had more power, if only I had more time, if only I had more blood, thought Naruto as his hatred for all things related to Konoha started to take over what little body and soul he had left. It filled him with an unnatural energy and spread to that which was around him. Out of the corner of Naruto's eye he saw the blood of his enemies starting to pool up and make its way towards his body. He felt an unnatural thirst take over after that. Oh, the thirst was the worst. It consumed him far more than his hatred ever did and drove him to stick out his tongue. He stuck it out twice as far as he thought was possible, and finally the blood started to absorb into him. All the blood of his enemies started to rise up and swirl into him, filling him with a power greater than any he had ever felt before. As the villagers rejoiced, screaming at the top of their lungs to their loved ones about how the demon child was finally dead and how they had been avenged, they heard the sound of slurping. When they turned around they were appalled at what they saw. There was Naruto's body, armless, with its tongue stretched out, licking the blood of the ones he had killed. They went to stop him, but then the blood started to swirl all around them and then shoot straight into the boy. They watched as the boy's body was rebuilt by the blood of his enemies, and how the darkness of the forest seemed to stretch out and envelope the area. It was like they were in an entirely new world, or a nightmare would have been a better word to describe what they were seeing. The land had turned jet black while the sky had turned a blood-red color, and up above the moon was like a giant pearl with a pink hue to it. Naruto felt a power unlike any other. It made the power the Nine Tails had displayed seem like a joke, and the killing intent was amazing. Some of the other civilians literally died by being scared to death. As the corpse stood up, the blackness that had enveloped it started to peel away into small black bats. One by one they fell off to reveal the new and improved Naruto Uzumaki. His eyes were blood red, with dark black slits in the center of them. His hair had gone from a bright blonde color to a silvery white color. His skin was as smooth and perfect as one could imagine of such a noble yet dark creature, yet as pale as the normal full moon. He stood a good 6 inches taller, and the thin look from under eating had disappeared to reveal nice firm muscles and a streamlined body that most would kill for. His fingernails were sharp looing and his clothes were still in tatters, but it was his teeth that really scared them. They were ivory white and Looked shaper than any kunai, but it was the two front fangs that scared them the most. They were twice as long as the other teeth, and for some reason they all had the sensation to hide their necks. The civilians and other ninja were in hell while Naruto was in nirvana. Up in the Hokage's tower, Hiruzen Sarutobi had already got into his battle outfit. He hadn't thought things would get this bad tonight, but he was obviously wrong. He thought they would beat the boy up and then leave him in a gutter for the night, not kill him and unleash the damn 9 tails on them again. These civilians are far too stupid for their own good, thought Hiruzen as a squad of his finest ninja, except for Kakashi and Yamato, appeared before him. Hokage, what are your order? Spoke one of them. Find Naruto and try and stop the 9 tails from escaping. If you can't stop it, then kill the boy before the 9 tails can escape. That will at least give us more time to prepare for the 9 tails' next eventual attack. Spoke Hiruzen as he grabbed a giant sealing scroll that was used to control the one on Naruto. Yes, sir, shouted the ninja right before leaving. I only hope we can either fix this problem or kill Naruto before the fox escapes. If the fox escapes while its host is alive, then it takes a considerable less amount of time for it to reform. Maybe 1 or 2 years at best, opposed to the 9 or 10 if the host dies, thought the Hokage as he got ready for battle and charged off towards Naruto. It hadn't even taken 1 minute. Naruto had moved so fast and killed them so quickly that some of them were still looking around for him even after he had ripped out their heart. Only one, a brown-haired, black-eyed, pale-skinned man had even been able to move an inch before Naruto had his throat in his mouth, drinking all of his delicious yet calming blood down until the man was nothing but a husk like all the others he had killed. Naruto was having so much fun, he was in a blood frenzy as some would call it, and didn't even notice a large metal object exit what looked like a miniature black hole, with lights and windows on it, even after it hit the weakened and almost dead Naruto. Some say vampires are technically dead while others disagree, so I am just avoiding the confusion. Moments before the bus had hit Naruto, an interdimensional bus driver had felt the call of another monster signaling a pickup. Normally the bus driver would ignore it because he already had a passenger, but this power could only be from that of a powerful higher monster, S-class for sure, and one doesn't ignore an S-class monster and walk away unharmed. So he exited his own wormhole and went to pick up his next fare. He hadn't been expecting to come out of his portal and hit someone. Usually he did a much better job than that when exiting the portal. Driver, what is going on? I do not believe I asked to be dropped off here, spoke a voice from the back of the bus. The woman was beautiful in all forms of the word, with her flawless white hair, amazing blue eyes, and snow-white skin. She was a snow woman for sure, and a very. My pardons, ma'am, but we have another passenger who wishes to join us, spoke the bus driver as he opened the door and stepped out of the bus. The woman, named Surara Shirayuki, looked out of the window and basically saw a war zone/bloodbath, but the odd thing was there was no blood in the area. She got curious and decided to check out what was going on. When she got off of the bus, she saw the bus driver looking down on a young boy with tremendous demonic energy who was sleeping on the ground and was almost naked. She did notice his mouth was slightly open, revealing long fangs. There was only one creature he could be. Vampire, spoke Surara as she looked down on the boy. Correct, madam, but it seems he had burnt himself up. I don't know the circumstances, but it seems he has passed out, so I don't really know where to take him, spoke the bus driver, his weird glowing eyes alit with curiosity. What dimension is this? Asked Surara as she looked around. She hadn't been to this world before, mainly because she only traveled to the land of the Snow Woman, Yokai Academy, and the land of the succubus, in which the Snow Women were allied with. This is the elemental world. In this world, humans actually have the ability to gain some great power through training their inner energies to produce a multitude of great powers, spoke the bus driver. That was why many feared him. Only he could jump between worlds as easily as he did, and he knew of many that nobody else did. He knew of powers and other things that nobody in the monster world had ever heard of, yet he had seen, and probably dabbled in, for countless years. Are there any vampires in this world? No, he is the only one. Beside me, he is the first real monster to ever come to this world, and I highly doubt it was by accident, spoke the bus driver. So how did he get here? Asked Surara as she looked at the boy. His power was great and mainly out of control, but she could still tell he was a good kid at heart. I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say he was a natural-born vampire, which is extremely rare even amongst the most rare of occasions. spoke the bus driver as he looked at the boy like he was a mystery he truly wished to watch unravel. Then I will be taking him to the land of the snow women with me, spoke Surara as she looked at the smirking bus driver. All right. But you do know you're going to have to pay his fee, correct? Surara just sweat dropped at such a ridiculous thing but nodded her head in agreement and picked the boy up. When they were all situated in the bus and the bus driver started to pull off, they saw a group of men led by a really old man run into the forest and start shouting something in a weird language and charge the bus at decent speeds. But before they could get to the bus entered a wormhole, thus taking them to a world in which the elemental nations could never touch. By the end of the day, Naruto was lying in a small bed with a young blue-haired girl with 5 holy locks wrapped around his left wrist with jet black subjugation beads used to keep the holy locks attached. This was to keep Naruto from going insane with bloodlust when he woke up and slowly help him get adjusted to his new powers. Mizore was having a great dream, and was so comfortable. She had been in a frozen garden with the most beautiful frost sculptures she had ever seen, as their beauty was enhanced by the soft glow of the full moon. As she sat down on her knees to examine the flowers, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. There was a boy laying there. He had soft white hair, porcelain skin, and a weird black outfit. Think the black outfit Alucard had on when he killed Anderson in the anime Hellsing Ultimate. P.S. I don't own Hellsing, so this is a disclaimer. She went to wake him up but got shocked when he opened his eyes. His eyes scared and entranced her all at the same time. They were like 2 giant rubies with 2 long black slits in them. She felt like a cornered animal in the face of a greater predator, knowing that her time had come, but to her shock the eyes looked away from her and started looking around. Mizore watched with fascination as the boy stood up and looked around. He seemed to be just as lost in this dream world as she was, but when a soft smile graced his face she felt at ease. He let a breath she didn't even know she was holding out and watched the boy as he walked around. These flowers are very beautiful, spoke Naruto as he looked down at the flowers. He picked one up and then looked at it, but to his amazement it turned blood red. It still had that crystal look to it and was still see-through, but now it looked like frozen blood instead of water. Yay, they are. I have been walking around looking at them for some time now, spoke Mizore as she looked at Naruto and eyed him with amazement. She didn't know why, but her chest was beating really fast as she looked at Naruto. Since his ascension into vampirehood, Naruto had changed physically quite a bit. His face was no longer chubby and round like it had been before, and now was chiseled and angular. His hair was unusually spiky and he had 2 jaw-length bangs framing his face very nicely. He was a good 5 to 6 inches taller than Mizore was and had great muscle definition as well. His outfit was odd to say the least, but that didn't matter to Mizore as she knew what it was like to be different. Where are we? Asked Naruto as he looked around. Everything around his looked like a dream as it was far too perfect, and something was telling him that this was a dream. It was like a 6th sense in the back of his head telling him that he was in an illusion and to not drop his guard. I don't know. I haven't ever been here before, spoke Mizore as she walked around. She had a good idea of what was going on. Her mother had told her that sometimes monsters would reach out to one another and see each other in dreams. This must be a combination of their dream worlds mixing together. The frozen flowers were obviously hers and the bloody moon and sky had to be his. It all made sense as when he touched the frozen flower their dream worlds mixed and shared their control over the image, giving it the blood color but keeping the crystal look. I feel like we're in a dream, but if that is so, then are you a part of my dream as well? Spoke Naruto as he began to examine Mizore with his keen eyes. He saw Mizore stiffen slightly as his predatory gaze fell on her. She couldn't help it. Those eyes caused the reaction on a much more primal level than she could fight. He saw that she had long blue-colored hair and snow-white skin along with beautiful azure-blue eyes. She was wearing a light blue tank top with a white skirt and had no shoes on. Naruto raised an eye at that and wondered if she was poor like him. He did notice her face was getting red and she looked pissed off. Hey, I am not no dream, you jerk, I am a real person. My name is Mizore Shirayuki, a snow woman, shouted Mizore as she glared at Naruto. Naruto was shocked when he saw the girl's fingers start to freeze into sharp claws and her hair turn into a frozen waterfall with sharp points. That just confirmed it in Naruto's opinion. That great dream he had about killing those villagers was real. Naruto smiled and started to shift through the power in his body, causing it to radiate out of him in the dream world. Mizore was scared that she had just offended this creature because his eyes were glowing a bright red color and the power of his demonic aura was off of the charts. She took a step back and had a look of fear in her eyes. When Naruto saw that look in Mizore's eyes, he stopped what he was doing and looked at her with anger and hurt. Here standing before him, Naruto knew she was a monster, and yet she was looking at him with fear. Why? Why was she looking at him like she thought he was going to kill her? What had he done to cause such a reaction? It's that look. Why does everyone look at me like that? What did I ever do to make everyone think I am some kind of demon? Shouted Naruto as tears started running down his face and erupt from his body. When Mizore heard him say this, she knew that she had hurt him. She stood up, and even though she didn't know what she was doing, she ran at him and hugged him, hoping his aura didn't destroy her in the process. When Naruto felt someone hugging him, the world seemed to stop for him. Never in his living memory had someone hugged him before. He looked down and saw the girl holding onto him for dear life, and he knew his power was hurting her, yet she held on anyways. Naruto calmed down, and like his aura, his anger dissipated, and he looked down on the girl with sad eyes. "Why did you look at me like that?" asked Naruto softly as he awkwardly tried to hug Mizore back. He hadn't ever done it before, but he wanted to anyways. He was tired of being alone, and he wanted to be like those other kids who were held by their parents, the same parents who had a look of complete love and affection in their eyes as they looked down on their children. "I was scared. I haven't ever met a vampire monster before and have only heard the rumors, so I thought you would be like them and would be much meaner. I was scared you may try and hurt me. I am sorry," spoke Mizore as she rested her head in the crook of Naruto's neck. Somehow it just felt right. "Vampire? What is that?" asked Naruto as he looked down on the ice girl and was surprised he wasn't affected by cold of her icy hair, though this was a dream world, so maybe that had something to do with it. "You mean you don't know? You're a vampire. You know the most dangerous and famous monster in the world." When she saw that Naruto was looking at her with confusion, she just continued her speech. "You know the blood drinker, night walkers, the true immortals. Doesn't any of that jog you memories?" asked Mizore. "Sorry, I haven't ever heard of such a thing," spoke Naruto as he looked down at himself. He did have to admit he had changed, but he couldn't have understood why without Mizore there to explain it to him. Maybe that was why their dreams had come together. She was like a guide for him, and he was sure that if he freaked out and killed her, she wouldn't really die in her real body, so she was relatively safe from him. "Wonder why? I haven't ever heard of a vampire not knowing he was a vampire before," laughed Mizore as she looked over at Naruto with a small smile. "It is kind of funny if you think about it." "Ha ha ha ha, laugh it up, why don't you? At least you know what you are. I am still a bit confused about what I am. You said blood drinkers, does that mean I will have to drink other people's blood in order to survive?" asked Naruto as he looked down at Mizore. She looked sleepy, so he sat down next to a tree and leaned her up against him. "I don't know really. The vampires like to keep to themselves and feel it is below them to socialize with the lesser creatures," spoke Mizore, her eyes nearly closed by now. "Well, that is dumb. If they don't socialize with others, then how will they ever learn and change? I don't want to be like that. I want to make friends and find people who are precious to me," spoke Naruto as he leaned back and closed his eyes. "Can I be one of your precious people?" asked Mizore, though it was almost a whisper. "You already are," spoke Naruto with a smile. After that they both fell asleep in a comfortable silence, and slowly their dream worlds began to separate. The morning after Surara found Naruto, she had woken up and left her bedchambers and walked towards her daughter's bedroom. She didn't know why in particular she had placed the boy in her daughter's room, but she felt it was the right thing to do. The boy shouldn't be alone when he woke up, especially after what had happened the other night, and though she had thought about putting him in her bed, it still hurt her heart a bit to think about putting another man besides her deceased husband in her bed, even though he had been dead for years now, so she put him in Mizore-chan's room so when he woke up he wouldn't be alone. She wasn't worried about him going insane with bloodlust like when they had found him, because the snow priestess had sent down 5 very special holy locks with the most powerful seals that the snow women knew connected to them to put on the boy, along with demonic suppression beads as well, so as to keep the boy's powers in check. She still couldn't believe how fast the snow priestess had moved in order to get those holy locks and those subjugation beads, but she wasn't complaining. As Surara got up and walked to her daughter's room, she put on her white kimono with a purple obi sash, and tabi socks with black zori sandals. Her light purple, almost silver hair was fixed and put up in a ponytail with her bangs hanging down ever so slightly. She looked down with her blue-purple eyes and smiled a bit as she grabbed a sucker and put it in her mouth before leaving her room and walking to her daughter's room. Before she could make it to her daughter's room, though, she heard her new charge yelp in surprise. "Looks like Naruto found out before I could tell. Get to him," spoke Surara as she continued to walk towards her daughter's room, though now at a more brisk pace. As Mizore woke up, she stretched as she recalled the wonderful dream she had of the mysterious boy she had met in her dream. She wanted to hurry up and tell her mom, but as she got out of bed she heard something that made her pause. When she looked over, she about fell over in surprise as the boy from her dream, though a bit different, was right there sleeping in her bed. Mizore did the first thing that felt natural to her and jumped out of bed and hid so that she could spy on him. Naruto felt oddly comfortable, something he never felt in his life, as he sat up, unburying his face from a soft pillow that he knew wasn't his, mainly because he didn't own a pillow. The blanket around him was warm, and the coldness of the room really made the warmth of the bed that much more appealing to him, so he put his head back down and relaxed for a bit before he felt like he was being watched. Naruto quickly jumped out of bed and reached into his pocket for a kunai, only to find that not only was he absent of such a weapon but that his clothes were still in tatters from last night. Naruto was soon hit by what felt like a freight train as memories poured into his head. The thing that was the most pressing was the lives inside of him. He could feel them. All of those people he had killed while he fled from Konoha were now inside of him, and their memories and powers were now at his beck and call. He could see their memories, hundreds of years worth of memories at his disposal, and he had acquired them all in one night. Strangely, the memories that mattered most to Naruto were the memories of the dream he had last night. Naruto slowly sat on his butt and looked around the room with a disinterested eye. The room obviously belonged to a girl, though instead of pink she must have liked purple and blue far more, and maybe pure white as well. Naruto absent-mindedly picked up a picture frame, but then his eyes went wide. Standing there in the picture was the girl he had met in his dreams, along with the most beautiful woman he had ever seen by his side. "What is going on?" asked Naruto as he put the picture down and stood up. "Chi," was the sound that he heard, which caused him to look behind him, and what would have been a funny sight almost made Naruto jump 10 feet in the girl. "Ah, what are you doing?" demanded Naruto as he looked over at the girl he had met in his dream standing inside of a closet and spying on him by revealing only one eye. Naruto had been freaked out not only because he had just met the girl from his dream but also because she was spying on him. "Spying on you," spoke Mizore as if it was a natural and normal thing. Naruto just sweat dropped at her casual description of her actions and sighed a bit. "Why are you spying on me?" asked Naruto, though he felt stupid having to ask such an obvious question. "Why were you in my bed?" asked Mizore, causing Naruto to freeze up momentarily as he began to scratch the back of his head as he honestly, "I am not sure. I don't remember coming here, but I do remember passing out in a field. Someone must have picked me up and brought me here," spoke Naruto as he began to look around again. To his eternal shame, he jumped up again and shouted as when he looked back at the door, he saw that same beautiful woman in the picture with Mizore crouching down spying on them from the door. "Chi," spoke the woman as she continued to spy on them even though she had been caught, and rotated the sucker in her mouth a bit as well. "Why is it that everyone nowadays seems to be spying on me?" asked Naruto with a deadpanned look on his face, which caused the older woman to chuckle good-naturedly before she stood up to her full stature, causing Naruto to blush a bit as she had much bigger and better assets than he had previously believed when he saw her in the picture. If she had noticed this, then she didn't let him know about it. "It's good that you have finally come to," spoke the beautiful woman as she walked up to Naruto and stuck out an elegant hand to him. "My name is Surara, and I am the one who found you after your little episode in the elemental world," spoke Surara right before she pointed at her daughter, who was still in her hiding spot. "This is my daughter Mizore. I hope you two can become close friends in the future." "We already are. Naruto-kun here promised me I was his one and only precious person," spoke Mizore with a massive blush on her face, though she tried to hide it with the side of the closet door. "Oh, that was fast. How long have you two been awake?" asked Surara with a confused look on her beautiful flawless face. "We have only been awake for about 5 to 10 minutes, but we meet each other in a dream we had and we talked a lot there. I was just surprised by everything that was going on here to be on more friendly terms with Mizore-chan here," spoke Naruto as he pointed at Mizore, whose blush got even redder by the added "chan" to her name. A dream? After that, Mizore spent the next half hour explaining their dream and a lot of the things they discussed. Naruto could tell Mizore was trying to keep some of the more personal things secret, but her mother seemed really good at getting someone to spill their personal secrets. Well, that is odd. I may need to speak with the Snow Priestess about that and see what it means. Anyways, I am sure you two are hungry, so why don't I just whip you guys up some breakfast? Spoke Surara as she walked out of Mizore's room with a sway in her hips that Naruto couldn't help but follow with his eyes. What do you guys usually eat around here? Asked Naruto as he followed Surara, with Mizore following him close behind. The usual: bacon, eggs, biscuits, grits, toast, and just about anything else you can think of, and after you eat you can drink a delicious slushie that Mom makes, spoke Mizore as she grabbed the side of her face and did a little jig with a smile on her face. Sounds good. But can I eat that stuff as well? You said vampires are bloodsuckers, so maybe I can only drink blood, spoke Naruto as he entered the kitchen and then sat at the island counter. Well, Naruto, you are correct in that vampires do drink blood and draw power and sustenance from it, but if they so choose they can eat regular foods as well. They just won't be able to draw out the power from an egg like they would a victim they drank from, spoke Surara as she put a frying pan on the stove and began cooking some eggs. So when a vampire drinks they kill their victim and take their power. That doesn't sound like they have made a lot of friends in this world, spoke Naruto with annoyance clear in his voice. He was tired of being hated and feared. He was ready for a little love and acceptance for once. No, not necessarily. A vampire can drink a victim dry and take their demonic power, but they can just as easily take a sip and take the power and sustenance that they got out of that blood as well. The vampires are both feared and revered for their power, but their attitudes leave much to be desired. Surara then some bacon in a frying pan and began buttering some toast. Why did you save me? If the vampires are such pains in the asses, then why save one who could possibly be just like them? Surara looked at Naruto with a surprised look on her face before it went back to the kind smile that she usually wore. Well, besides, what would have happened to the snow women if the vampires found out we left one of their own to die in some far-off world? I thought you deserved a chance to live a more normal life, spoke Surara as she put their plates in front of them. What do you mean? By now Naruto was giving her suspicious looks that said, you are suspicious to me, lol. I learned a bit about that world you were in from the bus driver. He told me about your world and about some of your abilities, but it seemed you were not exactly loved in that world based on the way you were dressed, so I brought you here to the land of the snow women. Surara smiled and sat on the other side of Naruto while Mizore sat on his right, she sat on his left. So what happens to me now? That was the question that had been burning Naruto since he first woke up. He knew he was a monster now and that he was no longer in his world, but without being able to seek revenge on his hometown and without knowing almost anything about this new world, he really didn't know what he was supposed to do. Well, you could always go live with the vampires. I am sure they would love to have you, but you wouldn't really find a loving family environment. The vampires only care about strength for the most part, and you have that in spades, believe me, but if you want to have a real family, give us a shot. I am sure Mizore-chan would love to have you stay with us, as I know I do with you, but the decision is yours to make, spoke Surara as she went back to eating her breakfast. Naruto looked at his drink, which was a slushie of shaved ice with some kind of dark red food sweetened coloring that made it look like blood. Naruto took a sip of it and had to admit it was tasty and kept on drinking it. He was curious about what the vampires were like, but he didn't want to leave Mizore either, and he was sure she felt the same if her holding onto his hand under the table was anything to go by, and besides, he didn't want to fight over power. He just wanted to relax for once. Yay, sure, it sounds good, spoke Naruto as he went back to eating his food. Surara looked very happy and nodded her head, and Mizore smiled as well before going back to her own food. Naruto felt his heart lighten a bit by the way these two had looked at him. They seemed to enjoy his company and didn't see him as a monster, something he was very happy about. For the rest of the day, Surara and Mizore showed Naruto around the land of the snow women, which he found really interesting. Everything was made of ice and the snow made everything look so shiny and beautiful in his opinion, but the real kicker was the women there. They all hid from Naruto and then spied on his, though it was kind of obvious where they were, as they usually only hid about 3/4 of their bodies and left the other fourth sticking out. The thing Naruto liked the most, though, was that they were all nice. Naruto was surprised when he met the snowmen, which were more like abominable snowmen to be precise. They could transform from their human forms into giant ape-like creatures with white fur, though they were all really nice as well. Naruto met one man who wouldn't leave Surara alone and kept on asking her out and stuff. Naruto felt oddly jealous but was happy that all of his attempts were good in nature, and even more so that Surara kept on rejecting his advance. After that they walked around and talked to various people Surara knew and then had lunch over at one of the stands at the base of a mountain. It was all fun until a man in an official outfit came and told them someone named the Snow Priestess wanted to talk to them, or more specifically him, Naruto. Surara seemed to obey immediately, so that must have indicated that is very important. They led them to a giant frozen building with lots of windows and other things that a giant European castle would have, though it looked odd being completely white and all. The rugs were a nice touch, Naruto had to admit as he walked through the castle, as he had thought it would have either been some intricate design or frozen tiles used to make a pattern. Eventually they were brought before a woman whose beauty even rivaled that of Surara, and if Naruto was correct, Mizore whenever she got older. She wore a long white gown and had her hair done up in a fancy design. The sash around her waist was interesting, but the ice spikes around her neck were even more so. Naruto absent-mindedly wondered if they ever stabbed her or if they were made special somehow to avoid that. "Welcome, vampire, to the land of the snow women. I am the Snow Priestess," spoke the Snow Priestess as she smiled gently down towards Naruto, who was the only one standing as everyone else had taken a knee. Naruto had grown up scrapping by on the bottom, but his pride would never let him kneel before anyone regardless of reasons. "Thanks, I guess. Is there any reason why you called me here?" asked Naruto. He was used to those in power putting on that fake smile and acting like they cared about him when really they didn't. The old Hokage had been one of these people, though Naruto didn't know why he even bothered. The woman smiled a small serene smile before she nodded and stood up. "Yes, actually there is a reason. I wanted to see if the holy locks I sent Surara-san were up to snuff, along with the subjugation beads as well. It seems that they are indeed doing their job." There was one word in all of that Naruto had caught and hadn't liked at all. The term, subjugation, wasn't lost to him, and he was wondering if this woman was trying to enslave him. Maybe living with the vampires wasn't so bad after all. "What do you mean, subjugation beads?" asked Naruto as he gave the woman a hard stare that told her he was deadly serious. He wasn't happy when she put a delicate hand to her face and laughed softly. "Don't worry, young man, they don't do what you're thinking they do. When the word subjugation is used, we are referring to your demonic power. You see, you are what is known as a natural-born vampire, something that has only happened twice in recorded history, with you being the second one. When the last human turned into a vampire, he went insane with bloodlust, and it took years for him to gain any form of control over his powers, and even then it was only barely. Later on, about 100 years later to be precise, he finally gained control over his powers, but in that time he must have destroyed half of the world on his own, though the monsters ignored him and stayed away, so they didn't really suffer, but for the humans it was a different thing. He later founded the vampire race, and thus their kind has been around ever since. We put those holy locks and subjugation beads on you so that you can slowly gain control of your powers over time without harming those who are innocent along the way." By now everyone in the room was looking at the Snow Priestess and Naruto with wide eyes, especially Surara and Mizore. They couldn't believe Naruto was such an important figure and was also so powerful. "So if I wanted, I could still take them off on my own, correct?" Naruto was thankful for her trying to help, but he didn't like the idea of his fate being in someone else's hands. That had been happening to him for far too long, and he wasn't ready to go back to that way of life anytime soon. "You could, after all, even with those locks and beads on you, you still can access some of your powers, though greatly watered down. We do ask that if you do wish to remove the locks, that you leave our village, as we don't need a bloodthirsty and insane vampire in the center of our village." Naruto nodded his head, but then got to thinking about something else. "What if I just removed one when I am in danger? I would be able to control at least some of my power on my own, and I should be able to put the lock back on once I am done, correct?" The Snow Priestess nodded her head with a happy smile on her face. "Correct, you will be able to remove the locks one at a time to draw forth some of your powers, and then put the lock back on later to reign in your great power. I think it would be wise to have someone train you to handle these powers over the years, though, so you will be able to quickly assume your full power." Naruto nodded his head and after a while was allowed to leave along with Surara and Mizore. I still don't see why you decided to allow him to stay here. He is a threat so long as he is here, and if the vampires find out they will invade us in an instant and we will not survive, spoke the familiar Jack Frost as he looked at the Snow Priestess. He is the only one with the potential to be strong enough to get rid of Fairy Tail. If we can get him on our side and make him favor our cause, then we can finally get Fairy Tail to stop trying to enter our world. We need him far more than anyone knows, and without him our world may be in great trouble, spoke the Snow Priestess. I guess you know best, spoke the spirit before he disappeared. I only hope so, spoke the Snow Priestess. 7 years later, Naruto had lived with the Snow Women for the last 7 years, and to be perfectly honest, it was the best time of his young life. He finally had a family who loved him, and he was slowly learning how to use his powers, though without a teacher who knew a great deal about vampires or how they used their powers. It was just that, slow. Naruto wasn't upset by the slow progression of his understanding of his own powers. In fact, he was happy about it. He felt it was more fun slowly learning his powers and getting a better understanding of them than to quickly learn them all and then be left with nothing to do in comparison. Out of the 5 holy locks, he was only able to take off one and use his powers without complications, but that only left him with the power of a standard vampire, not the great and terrifying power Surara and the Snow Priestess told him he had. Naruto had been practicing using his own powers in his own time and had made quite a few interesting discoveries. He had learned he had a great healing capacity that far exceeded any other monster he had met or even heard of. He had found out one day when he was playing with Mizore while it was snowing and she used her powers accidentally and launched an ice spear at him that pierced his shoulder. Oddly enough, this was when he discovered a second ability of the vampires but was too shocked to employ it. She cried for hours after that, but when Naruto removed the spear, the hole closed up instantly, leaving no marking that it had even been there. Mizore had been in a funk for a while after that and had gone to her mother for training so that she never hurt anyone that she cared about like that again. Naruto was happy that she took her training seriously and could tell she would one day become a formidable warrior. Though Mizore's skills using her Snow Woman abilities was coming along nicely, it was still fun to mess with her from time to time because though she was getting stronger, she was nowhere near his speed or strength, which left her aggravated and annoyed. The second ability he learned the day Mizore stabbed him with that ice spear was called precognition, and it basically gave Naruto the ability to predict what someone was going to do next, leaving Mizore little to no chance she would ever be able to hit him again, though Naruto would have to work on it to perfect it. Over the years, Naruto and Mizore had grown close and he had enjoyed it very much. He had been the one to help her get over her fear of the dark, and she had been the one to help him get over the feeling of always being alone, like how he had felt when he was a child. Their friendship grew, and that caused them to develop an iron-strong bond that they knew could never be severed. Naruto and Sarara's relationship was odd to say the LD to treat him like the son she never had, but would pull back or change her mind midway through. Naruto was happy about this because for some reason he didn't want Surara to treat him like a son. He felt he wanted something more, but what that was he wasn't sure. She taught him a multitude of things, from snowboarding to acting like a grader for Sarara's family ski resort, and so much more. Naruto was a favorite for the customers because he was so handsome. Surara said that beauty was actually a natural thing for vampires, which was a good explanation as to why he had changed so much. It wasn't that he wasn't handsome, it was just that he wasn't that Mr. Perfect. Handsome vampires were none for before his change. On more than one occasion, the younger girls and some of the older teen girls had given him small playful kisses or had invited him to their rooms to explore. Though Surara or Mizore had always been there to stop that, though they always seemed really pissed at whoever it was they were talking to. Naruto loved to snowboard as it was something that just relieved the soul to him. He was actually a ski and snowboard instructor, though he chose to the snowboarding students most of the time, or unless he had to. Naruto had quite the reputation amongst those that went to Sarara's mountain ski resort about being one of the best snowboarders, only rivaled by Surara herself and Mizore, who had taken up the activity herself, though she and her mother used snowboards made of finely crafted ice. Naruto was just coming down from the mountain after a long day of teaching absolute newbies how to ski and snowboard. He didn't really see why people would pay money to learn how to snowboard when they lived in tropical places where surfing was far more common. Especially when he knew they knew that they would probably never snowboard again. But then again, these people did pay their bills, so who was he to complain? Gee, could be heard coming from behind a bush, causing Naruto to stop and look at it with an annoyed look on his face. How long is she going to keep on doing that? We are best friends and yet she still spies on me. But then again, so does Surara and every other snow woman in the village, so I guess it is something that I am going to just have to get used to, thought Naruto as he sighed over dramatically and placed a hand on his hip. You can come out now, Mizore-chan, spoke Naruto, though he didn't use his yokai detection capabilities because nobody besides Mizore ever greeted him when he was walking down from the mountains, since the other snow women were usually keeping the inn up and running and Surara was usually keeping the guests happy. Oh, so my voice does still sound nice and young him? Naruto stopped in his tracks and looked behind him. Standing there was Surara in her usual kimono, though that didn't mean she was any less breathtaking than she always was, and that cute smile on her face caused his heart to race twice as fast. He was still amazed that even after 7 years she didn't look a day older than the morning he met her. Surara, what are you doing here and where is Mizore-chan? Asked Naruto as he put his snowboard on the other side of his body so that Surara could see him fully. Naruto had grown quite a bit in these past 7 years. He was now about 6 inches taller than the normal boys who were 13 years old, and his muscle definition was truly spectacular. He wasn't skinny nor was he overly muscular. His hairstyle had changed a bit as well, as now his bangs were about an inch or two longer, as was the rest of his hair, making it not so spiky, though now it had a rugged look like he had just woken up from a long sleep. He was just wearing a black and white snowboarding outfit, but even in that he was rocking it. Oh, no, Surara-chan. What is that about, Naruto-kun? Aren't I as pretty as Mizore-chan? Joked Surara, but for some her heart clenched, like what Naruto would say next really did matter to her more than just her pride in her looks. Of course Surara-chan, I was. What was the question again? Asked Naruto as he fumbled around for an answer. He didn't know why, but his heartbeat, which was usually a bit slower than the regular human's heart, was moving as fast as a jet engine in his chest. Sarara's heart soared a bit at Naruto's compliment, but was able to keep from blushing, which really surprised her, though she put thought in the back of her head for her to think about later. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Now let's head on down to the resort. There is something I wish to discuss with you, spoke Surara in a much more serious voice than she had used earlier. What's going on, Surara-chan? Spoke Naruto with a small blush on his face. Surara saw this out of the corner of her eye and smiled, but didn't say anything about it. It has come to the attention of our allies that you are considered a valuable asset to the Snow Woman and Snowman world, and by extension to our allies the succubus and incubus monsters. They believe that you should come live in their world for a few years and get yourself acquainted with them so that you will feel they are just as important to you as we are. This sent Naruto reeling. He knew that he was considered a valuable member of the Snow People's community due to his supposed great power that he contained, which if harnessed could be used to protect their people, but this is the first time he had learned about any alliance with another race. I am guessing I don't have much of a choice in the matter, do I? Naruto knew that they wouldn't force him to do anything he didn't want to do, but it would cause a strain between them and their allies, which could cause more complications down the road. What are your thoughts on this? Asked Naruto, hoping she would be against it, though he didn't know why. I think you could truly benefit from this, spoke Surara, though there was a bit of ice in her voice. Though you would be greatly missed by Mizore, the other snow women, and by me, but it is for the best. It will benefit you and everyone else in the long run, though it is still your choice. Naruto smiled for reasons he knew not, as he could literally feel her want for him to stay using his vampiric powers. I guess I could go for a year or two and then come back. That should be plenty of time for me to get used to the succubus and incubus lifestyle. I just can't wait to get started learning how to use my charm ability. It seems so useful, spoke Naruto as he walked alongside Surara back down towards the inn. Oh, so are you planning on seducing anyone specific? I hope my little Naru-chan isn't planning on becoming a pervert, spoke Surara with a teasing tone to her voice. Naruto's cheeks were turning red, and he knew he would have to turn the conversation on Surara or he would end up red as a cherry by the time they got to the inn, so he blurted out the first thing that came to mind. If you keep it up, I might just charm you, spoke Naruto, but immediately stopped and looked at the ground with a red face as he realized what he just said. What Naruto didn't see was the blush on Sarara's face after he said that, since he looked at the ground immediately. Sarara's beautiful pale skin was now cherry red, though she used her control over ice to cool herself down. Well, you're a bit young for me now, but maybe in the future when you're older, half-joked Surara with a catchy laugh that wouldn't have fooled anyone except they were not in any situation to tell such a thing. They walked in awkward silence after that all the way to the inn where they entered without a sound. Naruto could smell a provocative scent in the air and knew someone was wearing it, though it was unlike any Naruto had ever smelled before. They quickly walked over to the greeting room where Naruto was shown a view that greatly surprised him. Agaya, that is not the proper way to introduce yourself. Naruto, this is Agaya Kurono and that would be her daughter Kurumu Kurono. Agaya is a friend of mine that I met back in Yokai Academy and she has agreed to take care of you while US World. Spoke Surara, though her voice was strained for some reason. Naruto-kun, you can call me Agaya-chan and my daughter Kurumu-chan as well if you like. We're here to teach you the ways of the succubus or incubus in your case, though we didn't think putting you up with the incubus would be such a good idea as they are known to go down to the human world once they hit puberty and bring back women to their homes. That isn't something the snow and succubi priestesses believe you are ready for, so a house where the relationships are more normal were decided to be for the best. Since you are so close to Surara, it was decided I would be a good choice as I have a daughter Mizore-chan's age which should help you get used to living with us faster. Naruto's head was spinning from all of those words. It seemed she really liked to talk, which wasn't bad, but he hoped she didn't expect him to remember everything that she said. Agaya, you can't be serious. Yes, he is handsome, but he is far too young for that, spoke Surara as she blushed lightly. Something Agaya noticed. Oh, I bet in a couple of years you and your daughter over there will be singing a different tune, spoke Agaya with satisfaction as she watched Surara and Mizore blush up a storm. Mom, are we done yet? I am freezing and I am ready to get back home and try on my new dress, spoke Kurumu as she tried to ignore her mother's over-display of affection for the really cute boy they had come to pick up. She really wanted to go put on a cuter dress and show him how beautiful she was in it. It seemed everyone else besides Naruto caught onto this, though only Agaya was happy about it. Okay honey, let's get going, spoke Agaya as she held onto Naruto and ushered her daughter out of the inn and onto the bus that they had entered the land of the snow women on. I don't like this, spoke Mizore with an unhappy look on her face. Surara couldn't blame her as she knew she was going to miss Naruto just as much as her daughter was going to, and she knew that things weren't going to be the same around the inn as it had been with Naruto around. I know honey, but there is nothing we can do. We have to keep the land of the succubi on fair terms with us if we want to keep less peaceful people, fairy tale, from entering our world. There are those that wish to make their home here in the land of snow and we can't let them, and Naruto is the only one strong enough to fight them off all by himself. If we tried to do that, our population would drop exponentially, and that isn't something neither we nor the succubi want. We need Naruto, yes, but we also need the succubi like they need us, spoke Surara as she and Mizore stood up and started to clean up the house in glum silence. As Naruto, Agaya, and her daughter Kurumu entered the bus, he saw the bus driver, who kind of weirded him out and also gave him a sense of nostalgia as well. The bus driver didn't say anything, but that creepy smile said he knew something. Come on Naruto-kun, come sit beside me, spoke Kurumu as she pulled him to the back row where she sat on his right-hand side with a smile on her face. Naruto was kind of put off by her assertive attitude because he was used to the snow women's more passive ways, especially those of Mizore, who seemed to be a polar opposite of this girl. It hadn't even been an hour since Naruto had left with Agaya and her daughter when Sarera's coffee mug broke down the center. Which was a bad omen, though instead of being scared or something, Surara was angry for some reason. It felt like someone was touching something of hers that they shouldn't be touching, and that something meant a lot to her. I swear if Agaya and her daughter, but that was as far as her mental rant could go before the floor started to freeze. When she looked back, she saw her daughter standing there with an angry look on her face. So you felt it too? Surara and her daughter locked eyes and they both knew that this was war. It was snow women versus succubi. They had better keep their hands off my Naruto-kun, spoke Mizore as she walked back up to her bedroom to vent some of her anger. Agreed, thought Surara as she went back to cleaning up the mess her coffee cup had made. Eventually the bus driver dropped them off in a world much different than the snow-covered one Naruto had come to love. This one was somewhat dark and was covered in a large forest with thick trees, though there wasn't much underbrush. Naruto could see that many of the buildings were made in old European styling, which gave the world an old feeling. Naruto had learned that all monster realms were surrounded in barriers that kept the humans from finding them. "Come on Naruto-kun, we need to hurry up and get to your new home and get you all settled in," spoke Agaya as she held Naruto's hand and basically dragged him to her home with Kurumu walking beside him the whole way. As they walked through the city, Naruto saw lots of people, both male and female, looking at him. He noticed the women were looking at him with weird looks that made him blush a bit and made him feel all hot and bothered under the collar, though the guys either looked jealous or like they found someone to corrupt. Eventually they came upon a house that was in the center of its own forest and was about 3 stories tall. It looked like an old English manor, though the dark look was a bit much, but who was Naruto to judge? When they entered the house, Naruto felt like he was walking into a love palace with the red rugged floor and the large vanity mirrors on the wall. "Welcome Naruto-kun to our humble abode," spoke Kurumu as she started showing Naruto around. She showed him the large kitchen, the giant greeting room, all of the restrooms, and many more rooms before they came upon the guest room that had been redone for Naruto's use. The guest room was kind of much in Naruto's opinion. He was used to an old-fashioned Japanese room where the bed was more of a mat on the floor and the room was average and had wooden walls. This overly extravagant old European-style room with the giant king-sized bed, tiled flooring, and black wallpaper with golden emblems on it, and giant walk-through wall window with a balcony on the other side along with all of the expensive furniture was just crazy to Naruto. Naruto knew Tsurara made and had a lot more money than she flaunted, but seemed happy with the simpler things in life, while it seemed Agaya wasn't this way at all. It seemed she liked flashing her money and living it up. "Great, when you are done unpacking, meet me outside. I want to show you something really cool," spoke Kurumu as she ran out of Naruto's bedroom with an excited look on her face. When everyone was gone, Naruto let out a sigh and sat down on his new bed and pulled out a pen and 2 pieces of paper. He had promised Tsurara and Mizore that he would keep in touch, and that was what he was planning on doing. He already missed them and their inn in the mountains, but he did want to learn how to use his charm abilities and maybe advance to the point where he could take off 2 of his holy locks without losing control of his powers. After he got done writing his letters, he walked down the staircase, down into the grand hall, and then out into the backyard where he saw Kurumu and her mother waiting for him. The odd part was, Kurumu and Agaya was both flying with big black wings that didn't have any feathers and had long black tails with heart-shaped pieces at the ends of them. "What do you think, Naruto-kun? This is my monster form, the succubus," spoke Kurumu with pride as she did a little spin in the air and seemed to really enjoy it. "Oh, so you guys can fly as well?" asked Naruto as he watched them look at him funny. "You can fly as well? I didn't know vampires could fly," spoke Kurumu as she watched Naruto from up in the air. "Well, I don't know if it is a common ability, but I can," spoke Naruto right before 2 black wings popped out of his back and began to flap, causing him to fly up into the air until he was right in front of Kurumu. "See?" spoke Naruto with a smile. "Wow, that is so cool. Your wings look just like mine," shouted Care, flip in the air. "Let's have a race," shouted Kurumu as she flew out over the dark forest. "Okay," shouted Naruto as he blasted off towards Kurumu with shocking speeds. It wasn't any surprise when Naruto surpassed Kurumu at such speeds so quickly that she didn't freak out in surprise. She hadn't ever seen anyone move that fast while flying and went on to pester him to teach her to fly faster. Using flying as a medium, Naruto really started to like Kurumu. She was a sweat if very assertive girl. They spent hours flying together, even past Kurumu's usual bedtime. What they didn't see was the shocked look on Agaya's face when she saw how fast Naruto was moving, or just because Naruto could sprout wings at all, as it wasn't an ability that was very common amongst vampires. Most vampires hated transforming themselves where it didn't make them look perfect, so they had shunned such abilities regardless of its potential as a powerful weapon. "Tsurara, you really found a monster amongst monsters, didn't you?" though Agaya, as she smiled gently and watched as his daughter asked tips from the same boy she was trying to impress by flying in general. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.